that case, why don't we come up with our final segment, which is, of course,
Random Stats.
Random Stats.
Yeah.
Would you like to go first this week, Dave? For
I'll
random
go.
stats.
I'll go first this week. Yeah, I'll take this one on. So mine was actually from, or it originally came from a tweet from Warren Sharp of NFL on Fox. I found it fascinating because it's the stat is about total snaps played in the last 5 years by players that a team have drafted themselves. Okay, so but you could even make the argument that they're like kind of homegrown players, if that makes sense. Are you with me so far?
I'm going to say yes.
So teams that they've drafted the player out of college,
Yeah.
and they've played snaps for them over the past 5 years. Okay?
Gotcha.
So the top, I'll give you the top three. Okay, and I'll give you top three and the bottom three. So out of all the players that they've drafted, the Dallas Cowboys have got players that played the most snaps that they've drafted. Okay, so the amount of snaps by players that they've drafted in the last 5 years, 91,901 snaps.
That's a lot of snaps.
That's a lot of snaps. Okay. Now, the second and third are a bit way back, and that's Minnesota and Baltimore on 85,000, 83,000. So those three teams really like to sort of throw in their draft picks into the start, and make them play for a period of time. So that's good that they have faith in their scouting, I think, especially from those three teams. You go to the other end of the spectrum, though. It's quite eye-opening because third last is the Rams. Now, the Rams don't really emphasize draft picks very much, and that shows in these numbers. So they're 30th in the league, and they've had 54,300 snaps. That's a big difference between them and the top, which is the Cowboys. Yeah. Okay, now I want you to bear in mind that Cowboys number of 91,000. Second last are the Jets with 47,000, and they've had some quite high draft picks in the last 5 years. Unfortunately for them, they've shipped on a lot of those draft picks, that they're kind of top draft picks, and they've moved on. So, they're second bottom. Last, however, are the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, their number, remember the Cowboys number, 91,900?
91,000, yeah.
Yeah. Las Vegas Raiders, total snaps played in the last 5 years by players that a team have drafted themselves, 11,900.
That's not a lot.
It's ridiculous. It's about 12% of the Cowboys.
Wow.
That's right. So basically the players that they draft, they either don't play very often or they're shipped off really quickly. I'd say from a Raiders point of view, for with their outlook on the future and their emphasis on draft picks, that's bad. That's not good. It's a really bad one. I mean, the Raiders organization we know is not the best run one, but this is just another one to back that up. But yeah, the Raiders, they basically bring players in on free agents and free agency signings and trades, and don't place enough emphasis on the players that they draft. So that is my random stat. The Raiders having 12% of the snaps, the snap total that the Cowboys had on players that they drafted themselves in the last 5 years. Very detailed, very long. I do apologize, but
never apologize.
It raises a point about the Raiders.
It does. But never apologize for an intricate random stat. I love that. Good random stats. Okay. The Raiders need to do a better job of drafting, but then they just sign the biggest, fastest guy, and that's what they do every year.
I mean, they didn't even take up the 5th-year option of Josh Jacobs, so who they drafted. So there's.
Yeah, they don't seem to like players at the draft. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've run out of excuses at this point, so good luck to them.
Yes. Now, my random stat concerns running backs.
Ooh.
So, in the history of the NFL, one player has rushed for 200 yards in a game 4 times. Just one guy. Now, who do you think that... Well, actually, I'm saying over 200 yards. The numbers actually only go up to 50, the top 50, as it were. So, take a guess who that might be. Just throw out a name.
I mean, it could be. Well, obviously, you have Barry Sanders, but I doubt it will be. Or Flipper Anderson, maybe?
It wasn't Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders has done it twice. He's done it twice. Yeah. Adrian Peterson's done it twice.
Yeah, that was the other one I was going to say. But Flipper Anderson, maybe?
No, he was a receiver.
Oh, of course.
Who do you think? Are you thinking of someone else there? Derrick Henry's done it twice.
Derrick Henry.
Marshall Faulk's done it once. He's done it once. Now, O.J. Simpson and Jamal Charles have both done it 3 times.
3 times? Okay.
But the guy who's done it 4 times is the all-time legend, Jim Brown. Okay?
Of course. Okay. All right.
Now, I'm going to go through some of Jim Brown's seasons, because see, a lot of people, although they've heard the name Jim Brown, and they've heard people saying Jim Brown is arguably the greatest running back of all time, a lot of people don't realize just how good Jim Brown was. Okay, so I'm going to give you some of his running yardage through his seasons. So 1,527, 1,329, 1,257, 1,408, that's 4 in a row. 1,863, 1,446, 1,544. Okay, 2 seasons in his career he didn't rush for 1,000 yards. In his rookie season, he went for 942. And in his 1962 season, he went for 996. So nearly hit 1,000 yards every game. The important thing to remember is that up until 1961, there was only 12 games in a season.
Wow. Yeah.
That's what
I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please. Wow.
From 1961 until 1965, when he retired after 1965, there was only 14 games in a season. In his 1963 campaign, where he went for 1,863 yards and 12 touchdowns in 14 games, that gave him an average per game of 133.1 yards per game. And in his 1958, where he went for 1,527 yards and 17 touchdowns, that was in 12 games, and he averaged 127.3 yards per game, rushed for 17 touchdowns in 12 games in his second season in the league. Jim Brown was a legend. Now, obviously, I never saw him play, way before my time. I don't know anyone who did actually see him play. Of course, there's many people who did do that. But you see, when people are saying Jim Brown was one of the greatest running backs of all time, probably the greatest running back of all time, you look at his career numbers and you go, well, they don't really stack up with, Emmitt Smith or even Walter Payton. But the reality is the guy was only playing in 12 games a year, and he was going for 1,500 yards and 17 touchdowns. Or when he did get up to 14, he went for 1,800 yards, 1,400 yards, 1,500 yards. I mean, in his career, he averaged 104.3 yards per game. Jim Brown was something else. And that is my random stat.
Fantastic.
The great Jim Brown.
Yeah. And I think it goes to show the way that, even though the game has developed and there's more yards, there's more games every year, that his numbers are still not being topped. So I think that, evidence in itself and the longevity as well to keep it going year after year after year.
Yeah, I mean,
it's impressive, really impressive.
We look at that 1963 season that he had. So he went for 1,863 yards. It was an average of 133.1 yards per game. So we're going to get the calculator out and work out what that would be. 133.1 times 17 if he played today. That works out at 2,262 yards in the season. That would break the all-time record.
Easily. With change.
You know?
Plenty change. Yeah.
Jim Brown was something else. He really was. And he went on to do movies as well. Jim Brown.
Oh?
Yes.
I did not know that.
He did. He's been in a few TV things and a couple of films. Jim Brown's done all right for himself after leaving the NFL. And quite rightly so. Apparently, he's always been a perfectionist, puts 100% into everything that he does. So there you go. That is my random stat. Dave, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we leave it there?
I don't think so. Just big shout out to the Rams for actually making one signing, even if it's just a re-signing. But they've finally done something. But here's to many more at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Dave, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
So, always my pleasure, buddy.
Thanks to all of you for listening and, of course, watching us on YouTube as well. If you are checking us out on YouTube, please feel free to like and subscribe. Obviously, everyone bangs on about the old YouTube algorithm. The only way you get your videos recommended is if more people subscribe and like your videos. So if you be good enough to do that, we'd really appreciate that. Of course, keep your comments coming. You can find us on Twitter. You can also find Dave on Twitter and Jake as well. You'll find us at the WinFL Show on Twitter. And if you've got any suggestions for random stats that you'd like us to do on the show, ping us a message on Twitter. We'll be happy to read it out for you. The more random and obscure it is, the better. We'd love that, particularly if it involves special teams. Because I love special teams here in the WinFL Show. Yes. So feel free to hit us up on Twitter at the WinFL Show. Give us your random stats, and we'll see about reading them out. Might even give you a wee shout out as well. So once again, Dave, thank you very much for your time. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you on next week's edition of the WinFL Show.